So it just takes a second or two to register on my screen to give me the link. And as soon as I have that, I'll send it to you, but I can start the show meanwhile. So, hello everyone, good afternoon, and welcome. This is Romola D from Romola D Reports, and I'm here today with a very special edition of our show. I'm here today with Neelu Berry Chowdhury, who will help co-host the show with me. Neelu, as many people know, is a child rights advocate, a social media journalist, an investigator, and someone who's also working on the Equity Monarchy Trust with Edward Ellis. And she's just a great activist and speaker for whistleblowers. I'm also here with Jesse Perez Casanova of Earth United. Jesse, as many people know, pretty much took the world by storm a little while ago, announcing to everybody the truth about sovereignty, common law, legal fiction, the strawman, Roman Empire, the British Crown Empire, etc. And we're going to hear a lot more about that and how all of us can break away and find our freedom. I'm also here with Christopher James of A Warrior Calls, and he is also an expert in all of these matters. And he, in fact, is the one who's going to help educate and inform us this afternoon. So I want to turn the floor over to you, gentlemen. Thank you first of all for joining me this afternoon. Thanks all of you for making the time. And I'll turn the floor over to Jesse at this time.
Hi guys, thank you so much, Romola. My name is Jesse Perez Casanova, and what happened was I started an organization by the name of Earth United. It had initially the simple intention of making the world a better place and finding whatever solutions are necessary to help us get there. Fortunately enough, along my process, I'd come across a remarkable man by the name of Christopher James, who has an extensive amounts of experience within the realm of common law. Christopher had, quite frankly, gone ahead and presented an unbelievable and seriously logical solution that truly gives us, the people, the ability to finally put an end towards this madness. And that's exactly what it is we're going to be discussing today. Earth United is essentially an organization, because I created it with a real simple strategy, and that strategy was that we're stronger together. And fortunately enough, right now, we have something that's really important, that really requires all of us to set aside our differences and band together like we've never done before. So that's my short little introduction, and I'll take it over to Chris.
Thanks, Jesse and Romola and Neelu. It's a pleasure to be here. Jess and I appreciate this very much, and also the world will appreciate these truths that we are doing all we can to bring forward. My background, as Jesse alluded to, 20 years I've been doing deep investigation. It began on a personal level, and then through the personal journey that I was going through, I came across an enormous truth. And that truth originally was to undo massive wrong and harm that occurred to my family through the court systems, and then through my relentless pursuit to get to the truth and hold people accountable, I wound up coming to this massive truth that actually applies to every man and woman in this world. And it is an incredible truth that once it's brought out into the light, it is going to have an enormous effect on our world.
Thanks so much, Christopher. We're so glad that you're here and that, you can sort of help lead us onward on this journey. So, when you begin to explain this to audiences, where do you think would be the first place to start? Because it seems like you are obviously immersed in the subject, and the things that many people absolutely have no clue about, right? Because they kind of take the structure of government that we see around us for granted. But you found out something about it very basic. Did you want to start there, perhaps?
Sure. The best place to always start, it doesn't matter, especially if you're an investigative reporter or whatever you're building, if there's a problem with anything, you always have to go back to the foundation. You always have to go back to that very first act. And in our case, as a man and woman in this world, it's when we're born. It's very simple for people to understand. As I explain in all the interviews that Jesse and I speak on, is that when truth is present, very few words are required. So I could talk for hours on the subject, but I could also drill it down to 30 seconds if I had to make people simply understand. And it's real, I'll speak in a common sense first before we talk about common law, because there's been some other words put around. We're just going to have a conversation here with my fellow man and woman, a very simple one, as if you bumped into me on the street, or, we're sitting down and I'm sharing something very important with you, because it's really this simple. When we were all born, a trespass occurs, okay? And you say, well, what's that trespass, Chris? Well, when you're only moments old, lying as a baby in a hospital, and your parents are filling out hospital records and documentation, they're under the impression that they are putting on the record just for, lawful purposes and on the record that you have come into this world and that, you know, this is who their parents are, etc. But what is actually happening and behind the scenes is something very nefarious. There's documentation that when you're, like I said, you're only moments old, your name is being put to pen to paper, but then there's all this other documentation that's occurring outside of your consciousness, outside of your awareness. And when you talk about law, if you are not aware of something, if you've not been fully disclosed, if there's never been a meeting of the minds of people, and again, you're an infant, I mean, you don't have this capacity yet. So you can't enter into any contracts. Everybody understands that. Nobody could show up at your door that you've never seen before, put a piece of paper in front of you, and if they've got your name on it, you know, all of a sudden you're somehow bound to that paperwork, unless you were cognizant of it, that you had this interaction with these people and that your wet signature is on it and that you were fully disclosed at what the paperwork was meaning. So when we're born, a trespass occurs, and this trespass is absolutely horrific, because what it's doing is when we come into this world, we can talk about law now. I'll give you first one of the two most important things my fellow man doesn't know and needs to understand. The word legal. Legal does not apply to a man or woman. And people go, what? What do you mean legal doesn't apply to a man or woman? Well, that's because legal only applies to that which is incorporated, a corporation, okay? Or something that was created, it's a fiction. Lawful applies to a man or woman and people, not persons. Person is a trick word that's used within the legal society. We're not born as persons when we come into this world. And if you actually look in the Bible at Job 34:20, I believe it is, it says, let no persons be placed upon yourself, right? That God's telling you, don't allow anyone else to cloak you in any type of other person, because a person separates you from the Creator's creation, which is a man or a woman. So at this moment when we're born, this documentation is being created, and all of us receive shortly after we're born what? A birth certificate. And everybody believes that that birth certificate is actually a correct documentation that represents them as the man or the woman. And the first truth that you learn is that it is not. You had nothing to do with its creation, and the people that created it, they were also ignorant of it as well, because the system, as you've probably eloquently talked about in the past, has been around for thousands of years, of how they've enslaved mankind through the corruption of his consciousness. And this whole birth certificate, this was just a new level of the system that got rolled out worldwide in 1934 here in Canada, pretty much around 33 to between 35 around the world. That's when they started rolling out these birth certificates. And what this does is that when you're born, this evil that's in this world right now, because we're talking about the I don't know if I want to say the word, but the big lie that's out there with the C word that's going on, that all this fear is stoking, all of this is occurring because people don't understand simply who they are. And they say, well, how do these two things tie together, Chris? Well, when you come into this world and that trespass occurs, what it is it's the same entity that's created this massive lie surrounding the COVID stuff that's going on and all this fear that's going on. The same people that are creating that, which is the central bankers, the Queen, and the Pope, that's where all the heads ultimately go to in this hierarchy within this system we are born into. Okay, we're born into like a casino, a corrupt criminal world. Like it's a crime scene, this entire world, when you're born into it. And you don't realize, and most people, as you eloquently said, don't even have a clue what is really going on, because our trust has been misplaced for so long. So on that trespass, when it occurs, what is actually happening is that there's a legal person that's being created on paper, okay? A legal person. You're not born a person first and foremost, and you're definitely not born a legal person. We're all born free and equal under the law. We come into this world without any paper attached to us. Remember that. And even as we stand and sit here today, all of us, that same foundational truth still applies. There is no paper that applies to us unless we've entered into a contract with another man or woman, or through an organization where there's been full consent and full, a meeting of the minds. You understand what you're engaging in here. But what has happened is that when you come into this world, because this evil is so despicable, is that it has to kill the man or the woman on paper and create a legal fiction, a person. And then they use that founding document, that birth certificate, to go and create other identifications, corporations that are created in your name, such as a driver's license, what's on your health card. You go look at, in Canada, we have a SIM, which is a social insurance number. All of these things relate to that corporation, that legal person, because in the legal world, words have multiple meanings, synonyms. So a person, if you go and look at it, also has the same rights, supposedly, as a corporation in the legal world. But when you understand that legal does not apply to a man or a woman, it only applies to that fiction that was created when you were born. And this is the massive deceit that's gone on with everybody, because when you've gone out, like I say, go and pull out your birth certificate, your driver's license, look at your bank account, your health card, whatever you have, you're going to see your name is written in all capital letters first and foremost. Secondly, then you're going to see that it is written in different configurations. Sometimes the last name's first, sometimes they might only put an initial for the middle name, sometimes they might reverse it, put it in the normal way, your first, last, and middle. At the end of the day, you did not create that birth certificate. And this is what people must understand, okay? That birth certificate was meant to trespass against the mind of man right from the moment that we come in. And this is why our world is so lost, because we don't consciously know who we are. So people would say, well, how does this apply to us, Chris, and moving forward? If, for example, right now we have an enormous lie that's ruling this world, and that's what we must address first. The common law is a secondary part of this, but what ties directly into that at the same time is you must know who you are, because once you know who you are from this trespass that happened at birth, then you can understand what's going on in this world and who has jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is an important word, which means control, right? Who has control over us in this world? And no man or woman has control over another man or woman. Okay, we are not property of another man or woman, and no man or woman can administrate property without right. Those words are incredibly powerful when you understand what that is actually meaning to you as you walk this world today. Because the problem that we've had with this trespass that occurs, it's really a three-part punch. First is a trespass when we're born. And what happens at that trespass? Well, there's an unlawful conversion. What does that mean, unlawful conversion, Chris? Well, that means they're taking you from a lawful capacity to outside of a lawful capacity, which is illegal. They're not taking you, but that's what's being shown and created on paper, is they're creating this legal person. That's that all capital name. So when you have your birth certificate, go home, or if you're at home, pull it out and take a look at it. There's two things you need to really remember on it. Number one, you didn't create it, so it has nothing to do with you. Remember that. The second thing is that look at the information that is on it. You're going to see a birth date, which lines up with the day you were born in hospital, but there's a second date that's very important, and that's the registration date. So what was being registered on that day? As you do the research and you learn, if you go to my website, awarriorcalls.com, there's 4 short foundational videos that you can watch that explains all of this simply. And what's happening is that they're creating a company, a corporation, right? What you have to learn is, another word you have to learn is service corporation. Take the word government out whenever you're speaking to these governments that are supposedly creating all these things around us, and insert the word service corporation, because that's what they are. They're all incorporated, and they're a service corporation, no different than McDonald's or Burger King. So if Burger King sent you that ID when you were born, you would say, oh, isn't that cute? Isn't that funny? They sent me a birth certificate a few weeks after I've been born, and you wouldn't think anything of it. But unfortunately, because it came from this service corporation, the government or the state, whatever country you live in, from that organization, that collective in which you believed and been led to believe that that is your government. They're there to protect and serve you, and that they're there to, they're not there to rule over you. And yet this is what is occurring, because the service corporation created that entity on paper and they claim it as their ownership. So when you walk into these public courthouses, this is why it's simple to understand, is that all of our public courthouses have been corrupted. They're all operating on massive constructive fraud. And you say, well, what's the constructive fraud, Chris? Well, everybody knows that lawyers operate in our public courthouses. That's a key word, public courthouse. It's a public courthouse, not a private courthouse, which means every man and woman has the right to access it. And there's no man or woman in that courthouse that has the right to deny you access to seek the administration of justice. It's very important when you draw down the center of lines, and this applies to everybody. The simplicity of this common law is common sense. This conversation we're having here right now, this is one that should have happened with your parents to you and your grandparents to them and so forth. But unfortunately, these simple truths have been hidden from us. So that's why I say to people that once you understand who you are, you understand this trespass has occurred, then you're going to understand what's been going on in our courthouses. These people that work for a society called the bar, well, that's a private society, and they don't represent you in a court, they represent you. And the people go, well, wait a minute. First, you're telling me the legal world doesn't apply to me, yet we see all our fellow men and women going into these public courthouses under legal processes and court proceedings. So that's right. So how are they doing that? Well, the lawyer is not representing you, he's representing you. And then people go, well, what is he representing you as? See how simple this is? Now you go back to that birth certificate. He's representing you as that which was created when you were born in this world, the legal person, because their world, the legal world, only has jurisdiction over that which they've created, right? It's always about corporations in the legal world. So that's how they're dragging you in, and they trick you once you get into court to believing through their various different tactics that you are actually representing, that you're surety responsible for this entity that they created unbeknownst to you, but your consciousness has been thinking all along, oh my goodness, that is me. In Canada here, we have on the back of the majority of birth certificates, which they've started to change now, they brought out a new batch of them that are a page long instead of wallet size. There was a number on all the backs of the birth certificates that were given to people. And it's a red number, and it's a CUSIP number, CUSIP. And when you look
Oh,
that
don't
up,
they
right,
give that to prisoners as well?
well, I don't know. They may. They probably do, because again, it's not the prisoner that's in jail there when you understand the paperwork. It's that corporation. Like, that's when you
True.
realize how horrific this is, because there's so many people that are locked up in jail who have caused no wrong or harm to another man or woman, right? They might have been there, sure, they've got a drug charge or something, but guess what? That's their property. Unless they've caused wrong or harm against another man or woman, then they have no business being brought into these court systems. And again, it's all under the color of this law, this deception, this deceit that happens. And lawyers aren't taught this either, but lawyers are learning it. The black robe ones, Marilla, they know it at the highest levels in the court system. They know
The
exactly what's going
judges,
on. You're
right?
damn right. And people need to know
They
that, number
totally
one, they're
know.
not your friend. And number two, they have no jurisdiction over you, control. Once you enter that courthouse in the correct capacity as the man or woman, and your paperwork gives notice ahead of time before you walk into that courtroom to the man acting as crown attorney, because they're all operating under a very disturbing presumption. And that presumption is that you're under their jurisdiction control based on this unlawful conversion that's happened to us when they've created this documentation. Anybody can go look at any legal filing, and you're always going to see that the parties' names at the top are always in all capital letters. Okay? You do not, this is common sense now. You don't need to be the lawyer to understand this. Were you taught to write your name in all capital letters? No, we don't do that. Right? So why is our name in all capital letters at the very heading of every court filing that's going in there? Well, that's because it's corporations doing battle in a courthouse. See, and you don't know that. And that lawyer can represent you as the corporation that he's trained within their legal system and society to be able to work within their court system. But that entire system is all based on fraud. They're ultimately there to extract as much money out of you as they can, both lawyers on each side. Those lawyers have an oath to the court that supersedes their clients. Even if you're going to use, remember, it's a service that they're offering. Once you understand that the service is a rigged casino, you wouldn't go in there. You're going to say, no, it's okay. I'm going to access my public courthouse in the capacity of a man or woman here. And that's a whole other process that we can talk about maybe another time as far as paperwork and filing and things like that. But right now in this world, I'll wrap it up here, is that we have an enormous lie that is driving this world through fear. And all these service corporations around us are all controlled by the central bankers, again, the Queen and the Pope. They're the ones that have brought this entire theater onto the world stage right now. And they are able to keep it and hold it because they control the media. They control the governments. And the governments, as you know, if you're in the corporation realm, anything that comes out of these service corporations, they're pushing onto all the corporations, small, big, or large businesses. And that's where this fighting is coming now between the people in the stores and the streets, be it masks or testing that they're going to do. And they've set this up brilliantly because the people that are behind this are nowhere near being brought out into the light. And that is what Jesse and I are doing right now, because this truth is so huge when you understand it. First, you'll understand the COVID lie that's going on. Then you realize, oh my goodness, we have to have a solution. How do we stop what they're doing here? Well, that's what the power of your public courthouse is. But people don't understand its power. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this truth out to everybody, what's happened to them at birth, because why that's important is we are going to bring that into the public courthouse, that simple trespass that has occurred against every single man and woman in this world. And when the people understand and see that, there's going to be an enormous hard reset that happens right up through the system. Never again is the bar or police going to be coming and trespassing against us based on all their codes, statutes, rules, and regulations. They're going to really understand now that they're not allowed to trespass against their creators. Remember, when you walk into a courtroom, I always like to say to them, I take in that birth certificate, because remember, that's created. So you can play with the court as well, and you can say, I always ask first and foremost, I require your name to the man or woman wearing the black robe, and they will always give it to you. I'm John Smith or whatever, and from that point on, I refer to him as John. I call him John. I said, look, John, we've got a false presumption before this court. This is a legal proceeding, isn't it? He's going to say, yes, it is. I say, well, that doesn't apply to I am man. And because you're looking for the created, are you not the creator? And then you hold up the created, that birth certificate. And then you can point to, this is the documentation that I received. And again, you always want to write your communications to the other side beforehand, so it's not being brought out into the court just through vocally. You want it on paper simply so it corrects the record that they have a false presumption before this court, and that you're flipping it over basically to the common law side. In law, you basically there has to be a wrong or harm that you've caused another man or woman, or you've breached a contract. And it's that simple. But that's not what's being represented in our courthouses when we go today. Why? Because of this colossal fraud that's corrupted the consciousness of mind when we first came into this world. People don't know who they are. And once you learn who you are, that opens up the floodgates to understanding the remedy, because now we, the people, when we see that this is done, it's on such a colossal level, we're going to gather around these courthouses worldwide. And that is what we're ultimately correcting, is that trespass that occurs against us first when we're born. Why? That's all we have to address. Through that very simple process, it's going to expose that all the jurisdiction that these people have been taking, for granted from these service corporations, imposing all these rules, codes, and regulations, and now emergency acts and ordering people to stay home and mass vaccinations and mass masks, all of it falls apart. Because you realize, for example, in Canada here, the man Justin Trudeau, who's acting as the prime minister for what? A service corporation called Canada. The second that he's brought into court honorably, and you place him under oath or affirmation, and this goes for any man or woman acting as leader in any country, at the municipal, federal, provincial level, it doesn't matter. They're all working for heads of service corporations. So what they're putting pen to paper, or what they're speaking on the public record and can be barking out orders, for that to have any force or effect to us, they have to come into court and answer two simple questions. And it would be, the first question is, do I, and when I say the word I speak for every man and woman in this world. I don't speak for every man and woman in this world, but the truth does, just so we're clear. So when I say I claim, who claims I property? That's what you'd simply ask these people that are like Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. And he's going to say, oh, absolutely, Christopher, you're not my property, nor is any other man or woman in property. And I say, that's great, Justin. And the second question, who can administrate property without right? And he's going to say, well, nobody. For example, I couldn't come to your house and take your car out and drive all around with it, or then come and take your bike out, or walk through your house and go into your fridge, take your food, sleep on the couch, do all these different things. That's administrating your property without my right if I came and did that, okay? So that's what people just to simply understand, that no man or woman can order you around to do anything because slavery has been abolished. So
But
if Justin Trudeau...
what is the likelihood of bringing guys like that, Justin Trudeau and the Massachusetts governor in Massachusetts, all these guys who are throwing out these executive orders and trying to give people flu shots and COVID vaccines and whatnot. How do you get them into the public courthouse?
Well, it's that simple. It's that first and foremost,
not likely, says Nilu.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the people have to wake up. You have to realize the system that's out there now, that's not the system that we're going to bring these people into. See, our public courthouses are empty right now. They're filled with people that are operating in a public servant capacity, but
where are the public courthouses? Do
everywhere.
They exist?
Everywhere. Any courthouse is pretty much a public courthouse, at the state level, at the federal level, at the local level. Again, a lot of these places, traffic court, that's an administrative court. Sure, it's an administrative court, but at the end of the day, we the people paid for that building, right? So court ultimately in Canada here, we like to hold it in the superior courts. That's the upper courts, the larger courts in our country here. But you're not entering into under the jurisdiction, which means control of the superior court. When you move your claim in court, it's that man or woman bringing the law into that public courthouse. And the law of this land that came from our creator. It's the unwritten law. So when you say how hard is it going to be to get these people into court? Well, if we're going through their system, it's going to be very difficult. You would never get them into court, and they would never be brought to trial. But this is something bigger than just bringing these people to court, because they're the heads of these service corporations that are basically terrorizing the world right now. And how we ride out and shut down their so-called presumed control in which they're communicating to everybody is you expose them for the jurisdiction, the control in which they really have over any man and woman. And it's zero. They are our employees. We are the employers. People need to understand that. So when you put those two questions to those people, who claim my property? They're not going to say anyone under my control, and this service corporation does. And who can administrate property without right? You've just cut them off right at the knees. They're done. Because that exposes now everything that's been going on that they're stating has no force or effect, and they've been threatening people again with fines, right? These huge fines if you don't comply. It's all about intimidation.
That's what they're doing in Australia. Nilu, did you have a comment on that you wanted to jump in quickly?
Yeah, Christopher, I just want to get that point across, that these people who are occupying these courts are acting above all laws, and they are serial criminals. And they have been getting away with it for decades. We've been using that man and woman argument, and all that they do, they basically totally ignore what you say. I've had this with many, many judges. I am saying my thing about what you're saying. and they're saying their thing, and there's no communication whatsoever. They totally disregard what you say.
That's right.
Over.
They can't hear you in their world. This is what people need to understand. Even though you see them standing in front of you and you're standing in front of them, they're not going to recognize you because their court, even though you're hearing English, it's gobbledygook. They're speaking in legalese. It's another language. So how you do have them pay attention to you, that's why the man or woman has to learn how to file the correct paperwork. You never use their forms. You file your correct paperwork because you're bringing your court. In my example, it'll be the James Court at the Superior Court of somewhere. And that's very crucial when you look at the paperwork, how it's laid out. Remember, the legal world operates in a two-dimensional world. It's only what's written on paper.
It's
Yes,
all
you
on
hear
paper,
people.
right? The court is on paper in a sense.
That's right, and that's all, and that's what they're doing. So you have to address first and foremost the capacity in which you're showing up. You correct the record right off the gate. I'm not the created, I'm the creator, and your paperwork shows that. So right there, that's when you put a roadblock in whatever they're not listening to you. They cannot not listen to you now, and that's the key that people haven't understood of accessing the court. They've gone in there, and once you start flapping your mouth off or trying to point to things, as far as they're concerned, you understand legalese. You're in their jurisdiction. You haven't brought any evidence forward to basically confront this horrific presumption that they're all operating on. Remember, what Neil said there, she's absolutely right about, Nilu, pardon me, with the court systems. They've been corrupt for a very long time, but you have to understand that the people that are working in the front end offices, the court clerks, the bailiffs that are doing all the staff and taking care of these important records when you're filing them, it's your property again, once you file this, these people have been lied to. You have to understand that. It's the people that are part, remember, the court clerks and that are not part of the bar. Right? They're providing services to us, but they've also been lied to. And their trust is in all these people because they've been submersed in this indoctrination with all these people wearing the robes. So for them to look outside of it is very difficult. It's only when a man or a woman appears at the courthouse and acts in that capacity and they see how this man or woman's acting, that's when the light starts to go on. And we have the judges right now, they run from the benches. They say they have no jurisdiction over this court. That's right. You have no jurisdiction over my court that I'm bringing to, but you have duties and obligations, and you're required. When I bring a claim forward of a man or woman that's caused wrong or harm or trespassed against me, you have to move that process through that courthouse like lightning. And if it requires sitting a jury of my peers, so be it. So this is the thing, is that we have to realize that we do not have a common law system set up within our public courthouses. So it puts the onus on we the people to show up and act like the man or woman, to be able to move that process forward honorably and correctly with this court staff. And this is where the heads have butted. But because we've got this colossal COVID thing going on, that takes a secondary state to anyone that's going through the courts right now. We have to come together. We have to amass around these public courthouses. Why? We're not protesting. It's our duty. That when our creation, remember, government was created, why? To protect the property of man. Man and woman created government, and then government went and created courts, persons, all these other different things. So understand where you stand in the hierarchy. And once you really understand that, these courthouses are there to do your work for you. And that's why what Jesse's doing, we can start to bring it over to Jesse. What he's doing is just incredible. When I met him, I should just want everyone to know something about Jesse, is that I reached out to him originally to doing some incredible video productions, because I saw an incredibly talented man. And then what I ended up getting at the end of the day, again, it's through I'm getting goosebumps talking to you, because it's through the grace of God. For some reason I was reaching out to Jesse. I thought it was to create really great productions and get some short, powerful videos we could make that could go viral about this common law and the truth. But then I met Jesse, and then I started to see what he's able to do. And well, he'll tell you what's going on now. And it's absolutely wonderful. So, right now, we just require people to focus on understanding who you are and what happened to you with the trespass at birth. Don't worry about this campaign and the thing that we've got going for October, November. We're all going to get there together, but the first part of this is to bring people together, as we're wonderfully doing, and explain them the truth. So I'll leave that with you, and I look forward to Jesse sharing his end of this with everybody as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christopher. Did you have any comments to make as well, Anilu, before Jesse jumps in? Because I know he's going to tell us everything he's doing, etc.
Yeah, I was just going to say about, the criminals that run these courts, that will never, if once they know, Christopher, what you know, they won't come near you. They'll go to the easy targets with the children, try and steal the children. They steal the house and they steal the children, who are totally unaware of everything, and they've got too much on their plate to go through that process. They'll pick on the easy targets, and that's all I want to say, is that it's that predetermined endpoint, that's the ill intent that we're dealing with to how to do it as a blanket protection around the world. That's a challenge for us, I think.
Well, I'll give you the keys. I'll give you the keys to the kingdom that I learned from Carl Lentz, and this is just quickly from Child Protection Services side of things. There's 3 words you always master. The first one's trespass, the second one is property, and the third one is who. Let's talk about quickly the word property. You never, ever, 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 ever refer to your children as children in their court systems. Never. They're your property. You don't even put a name to them. I've seen Carl take down, they were taking 4 children away in a court in Moncton. I won't go into the whole story, but if you look up, what's his name, Jesse? I forgot his name, out of the UK column. UK column is an interview with
Brian Cherish?
Yes, Brian Garish with UK column and Brian Garish. It's a little over an hour long. Go and watch that and find that online. Carl tells you the whole story. But at the end of the day, he put 2 sentences into a court. These people were looking at, they had their children already ripped from them 6 months earlier, 4 of them. They were all in different homes across the province. Carl put up there a week before, he says, the next person or man and woman that calls me that have had their property taken from them, he says, I'm going to get them back for you. So that's a pretty ballsy thing to say and bold statement. And Carl's out of the United States. Well, he did that. He put 2 sentences into the court. And you should listen to the story. And basically, he destroyed that court. He trained the woman, the mother he couldn't work with because the father was still wrapped up in all this Freeman crap that's been out there and that, right? So he focused on Jessie, the woman, and he just had her stand up and point to that woman in the open court and tell her, he says, that woman there took my property. And then she stood up and she pointed to the man wearing the robe behind her and says, I require the immediate restoration of my property. And as soon as she stood her ground on that, right, they were looking at being locked up for 18 months. They were growing illegal marijuana. Their guns weren't stored properly. That's why they took the kids. Well, the gavel came down and they got their kids back in like 2 days. They got every single bullet returned back to them. The sheriff was stunned. He says, I've never done this before in my life. So that's a simple thing that anyone that's going through child custody issues, you start referring to your children as property, right? And then you say to them, who claims this their property? And then you say, who can administrate property without rights? See, and you take them down very quickly. So I'll let you get to Jesse now. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have you guys got any questions in particular that you would like to ask me? And then I'll do my best to answer that before I proceed in explaining to you from my perspective what it is exactly that we're doing here and why it's so important.
Well, Jesse, there's actually a lot of questions, but I wonder if, you wanted to just sort of tell us what you're doing and we can jump in later as the conversation proceeds. Because I could ask you things, very basic things like, where did you come from? And all of a sudden you kind of exploded with the videos out there. How did you get involved in this subject? What were the initiating, motivating factors behind your coming out with all this info? And how did you and Christopher connect? And why is it important to you? And why is it important to all of us? Because clearly what you are doing is you're sort of at the head of a movement. You're trying to get others involved and others woken up to the importance of all of this. So, that's sort of what I would be thinking.
Great. Yeah, you're correct. Let's leave that for the end. And I just want to get rid of the word trying. We're not trying.
Good. Yeah, let's get rid of that. You're not trying.
Words are very important. Yeah. And, especially in a legal and lawful sense, words have the ability to put you in jail. So a big part of what it is that we're doing is helping correct the consciousness here on this planet. Now, I'm so grateful for this solution. I'm going to break it down in a very simplistic sense because at the end of the day, I'm the common man who's been converted thanks to Christopher. And, I'm smart enough to listen to all the experts. And right now, the most important expert in my eyes is Christopher. And the reason as to that is because this knowledge that he's presenting gives us, the people, the power to finally put an end towards this Babylonian slave system that we've been ensnared in for far too long, for the last 6,000 years to be somewhat precise. Now, the most important thing is that people need to understand is that you're not free, okay? Before this whole COVID stuff, if anything, this whole situation this year has been nothing but a gift, because it's a gift that's allowing us and everyone that's conscious enough to understand what it is that we're saying to shine a light on this core level of deception that has been perpetuated for far, far, far too long. And it truly is evil. And how it's managed to actually fly by under the radar for this long is truly beyond me. As Chris said, individuals have the ability with 3 or 2 sentences to shut down entire court proceedings and to completely take away any power of these courts over the living man or woman. Now, as you can understand, the moment you're born, You are converted as a living man or woman into incorporated government property. You're converted into maritime admiralty products. As Chris said, law stands for land, air, water. These are 3 different jurisdictions: jurisdiction of the land, jurisdiction of the air, jurisdiction of the water. Now, this whole international slave-based system, these corporations that are operating out of the head office of the Vatican, are using the law of the sea to transcend their power across borders. So you, the living man born on the land, are now all of a sudden at birth converted from law of the land into law of the sea, which essentially is law of money. It's not personal, it's just a whole business at the end of the day. And what is the main product of this business? It's us, the humans, us, the man. We won't use the word human. We don't really know where that came from or what that means. We do understand the word man. And the funny thing is that all this terminology actually stems from the Bible. And what's so funny about that is that any other language that's been created beyond that point in this legalese, gibberish world is not actually rooted in the Bible. And it's so funny because when you learn specific words that Chris was alluding to earlier, trespass, require, and property, and you firmly keep your stance on the claim you're putting forward, your own property within your own courts, within your own jurisdiction, just using very simple words, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, and hitting those home without being intimidated by these guys that are using intimidation and fear to coerce you, and ignorance. The greatest enemy here is ignorance. So we find ourselves in a position where right now more than ever, so much power and control is being exerted over us. And it's making people exceptionally fearful, especially those that are quite consciously aware of the fact that they've weaponized absolutely everything against us from day one, whether it's your media, your food, your medicine, your mind. And now they have gone ahead and weaponized these rules and regulations even more than they already have, giving you the illusion that they have any power over you, but they don't. When you have this knowledge, they have no power over you whatsoever. And this is what's unbelievably remarkable about this. So as you can see, from the moment you're born, your consciousness was heavily and deeply corrupted. And we do not even understand the full subconscious parapsychological effect of that. We can only be aware of what we're consciously able to perceive. But can you imagine a newborn child, well, not child, newborn man or woman being born into this world and them adopting this belief system from their parents and their forefathers that any man or woman has the ability to have any control, ownership, and jurisdiction over you? You know, what it is that we're saying, what we're trying to correct in consciousness is that nobody has that right over you. Nobody is your master. Why? Because you were born thanks to God, thanks to the universe, whatever your belief system feels comfortable with explaining to you how it is you came here. Did the government create you? Did the government give birth to you? No, they didn't. That birth certificate, when you were born, were you born? Did you come out of your mother's womb with any documentation? No, you didn't. Okay. So this documentation is the land of the dead. And that's what they're doing. They're killing you on paper. Okay. Because at the end of the day, it's just business. What is the product? Man and woman. How is this business being able to perpetuate these crimes? Ignorance. Okay. So I'm so glad I came across Chris, because we want to move forward into a beautiful, lovely world where the future of the world is in us, the people's hands. But in order to get there, we need to address this core level of deception, this first initial trespass that had been trespassed against us from birth. And my friends, if we do not do that, we will never, ever be able to properly proceed forward as men and women on this planet. We will never will. We have to address the first trespass and lie and deception that was sold to us at birth. Now, what's so beautiful about this solution, my dear friends, is that it is the only solution. Why? Because it does not sit within these private corporations' jurisdiction. It does not sit within their control. Okay, Christopher and other people on this planet have gone ahead and learned this and practiced this. This is not just research. These are facts. These are not opinions. These are facts. These individuals have gone ahead and practiced this and had 100% success rate once they had mastered it. And they've learned how to access these public court proceedings. You can hold public court anywhere, because at the end of the day, once your consciousness is not corrupted, you understand you are a private corporation. You deal within the realm of the dead. We are living men and women. You have no power and ability over us. We can get together and we can decide the laws, and we can decide who comes to our courts and who it is that we try, and what remedy or punishment it is that they receive. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We have been working tirelessly, setting up the infrastructure and setting up the teams in countries all over the world. And they're being, number one, being led by Chris, the spearhead of this operation. And Chris has gone ahead and he's trained them in this particular solution. Okay, what are we doing? We are collecting people in our website, which I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screen share with you now, Earth United. We've gone ahead, we've set up the infrastructure in this time. Sorry, this is actually just a page. I'm busy. Oh, there we go. Great. So number one, you want to learn about everything that's been said, go to this website. Okay. And go to Chris's website, but particularly this one, because we need you to come to this section that I'm showing you here. If you are committed towards finally putting an end towards all this madness, if you're not committed, please don't come here. We're dealing with serious individuals. If you want to finally claim your power on an individual and collective level, join our cause. If you don't, and you're not taking this seriously, please don't. We don't have time for that. If you go to here, you'll see that we have already gone ahead and amassed and acquired a global network, which we're very happy for. Can you see the map that I'm just bringing up now? Are you able to see that? You are. Great. So this is our network so far. We have made absolutely remarkable progress. And I'll tell you why we've made absolutely remarkable progress, because we're doing this properly. We're not playing games. There's no time at all to play games. I'm just going to switch on over to another screen. Give me 1 second.
So this map shows all of your teams around the world?
Teams and individuals that have gone ahead and actually pledged their commitment towards this solution, this light being brought forth to the world and this campaign. I'm bringing up another page to you that I'm busy developing now, but these are all the organizations that have currently, and individual experts and advocates that have already joined our cause. And we would like to also place you on the section of our website. It's not finished yet. I was working on it before I'd come into this call, but it's remarkable. And it's the floodgates are opening. And, you know, when people realize how, you know, common laws are really about logic. And this solution that we're presenting, let me just get rid of the screen share. It's so logical when you understand this, that you are nobody's slave and that you have the ability to correct this. And we are coming forward, and thanks to Chris spearheading this, are showing you the way forward in order to solve this. Now, everyone is trying to find a solution, as you've seen, whether it's constitutionally, whether it's legally, so forth and so on. They're failing, and they're going to continue to fail. Okay, why? Because you cannot find a solution in the system that's been rigged against you. As Chris has said, the advocates, the judges, the lawyers have all pledged an oath towards the bar. The bar stands for bank. It's all money at the end of the day.
You can't find a solution inside the system. Is that what you're saying?
No, you can't.
You have to step outside of it.
Because the system is committed to the system, even in a judicial sense. So as soon as you, the individual, come and have a conflict of interest with these private corporations, the advocates and the judges, that's when they decide, okay, well, you know, we're not here to help you. We're here to help the system. Okay.
Right. The courts. Exactly.
So, you know, we've even gone a step forward. We have an application on the way out. We're creating right now. As I said, I mean, this is a serious thing, and there's a window of opportunity where we have the ability to do this. This is a very serious thing. And our solution requires at least 100,000 people in each of 4 of the selected countries, which we cannot reveal right now, because we have to provide a certain level of safety towards this operation. So as I was going back to what I was saying, Chris is gone, and he's trained all these individual specialists within common law in each of our 4 selected countries. If any other country can manage to meet our target at the same time we reach those 4 countries, please, by all means, join us, as long as the representatives have gone ahead and been trained by Chris. So what will be happening? Public court proceedings will be taking place in each of these countries. And us, the people within our own jurisdiction, will essentially put forward claims against acting members of these private corporations. That's what they are. They're not governments, they're private corporations. They have presidents. Who else has presidents? Okay, Burger King has a president, McDonald's has a president. The banks have presidents. Why? Because they're all corporations. It's all about money at the end of the day. So, what we're going to be doing is we're literally going to be going ahead and issuing warrants for arrest and bringing these people into court. Because remember, common law is man versus man. It's not man versus corporation. Okay? As soon as you're in this judicial world of corporations, you're going to get nowhere because you have no rights. But when you understand you're a man or woman, and you understand who you are, and you understand what rights you have, and you understand how the system works, you have all the power. So what we're doing is consolidating this power. Okay? We're going to go forward. We're going to issue arrests for these acting members of these service corporations for being complicit in these ongoing trespasses against us and our forefathers, and so forth and so on. These trespasses that have essentially resulted in constructive fraud and in this unlawful conversion that had been committed against us. The only thing is that that's never been addressed, but we have the ability to address that. And how beautiful is that? So, Chris taught me this, and I'll keep saying it over and over again. Your ultimate enemy is ignorance. So it is very important you do your best to educate yourself on this topic, but do not feel stressed in having to know everything. At least understand this unlawful conversion and trespass that had taken place against you at birth. At least understand that you have the ability with our unity, with our consolidation, we all have the ability to correct this. Okay. And what this does is it invalidates these service corporations, these private corporations masquerading as governments, because their whole system is built upon this trespass. Their whole system is built upon this unlawful conversion and this constructive fraud, which means that all of their government activities are invalidated, which means that any legislative policy they put in place means nothing. So don't fear the next time you see whatever nonsense legal legislative policy being put in place, because it actually has no jurisdiction over you. But it will if you are prepared, if you're staying within a realm of ignorance. And it's crazy because the solution is so simple. This is not a new solution. It's been around forever. But now it just seems as though this is destined to be, because everything is in play. Because if we tried this a year ago, right, Chris, we don't know what progress we would have had. Because, people need to really catch a wake up before they actually get off their ass and start doing something. Now we're saying, look, guys, we understand it's bad. We understand there's pedophilia. We understand there's this. We understand that there's that. We're not giving any issue more credence than the other. We're finding them equally important. But what we're saying is, if you really care about stopping all of these issues, you will understand that this is the way to do it, by addressing the thing that all the power of these criminal systems hang upon. And once you do that, they have no power. It's done. And we plan to live stream it and broadcast it to the rest of the world, because once the people see this, the consciousness of Earth will be corrected. And that is what we require in order to properly proceed forward as men and women on this planet. And our organization plans to do many beautiful things with the help of many beautiful experts, but we cannot even get close to being able to do that until we are successful in this campaign.
Absolutely brilliant. Nilu, I know you're dying to say something, so go right ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that, there's a technique of war, and then you have a defense mode war, and then you have an attack mode war. So everything that you've described is about us defending ourselves from this attack. But we need to deal with this alien force that is trying to enslave humanity. And in order to annihilate it, it is trying to annihilate humanity. We need to annihilate it. I mean, we have about treasonous crimes being committed by all public servants on a daily basis. The scale of it, of the seriousness of these crimes, of assassinations of the most vulnerable members of countries and societies, and the poverty, the sheer poverty that they've brought on this planet that we need to deal with, is what they feed off. I mean, as soon as you show them that you can defend yourself, they do not come in your face, but they go and attack somebody else who's more vulnerable. And this disease of this, I can't describe it any other way, but this evil alien force that is, it's like a malignant cancer that we need to deal with like tomorrow. Over.
Chris, you got anything to say about that?
That's exactly what we're doing here. That's the beauty of this, is that when this truth is brought out and everyone simply understands it, people are not going to a courthouse to protest it. We're actually going to the courthouse to access it correctly for the first time and show the world at the same time how we do that. Like I say, it's a very important moment in our history, in our world right now, because that's why this is so powerful. This trespass has happened to every man and woman. It's happened to all of us when we came into this world. And as Jesse has said, you have to put everything else out of your mind right now and focus on this one trespass and understand it, because that is the power that's going to, once it gets brought into the light at that public courthouse, that's what we mean by bring it into the light. We're bringing it out there in a lawful and a powerful capacity, and we're executing a right. The people en masse, we're gathering. That's a right that we have to do to correct enormous wrong and harm if it's out of control with a tyrannical government. And this is what we have going on in our world today. So we are simply doing our duty to each other by gathering around the courthouse. Everyone is going to be knowledgeable about that truth that's being brought into that courthouse. And everyone standing outside of that courthouse's consciousness is going to be raised to such an incredible level, as well as people that are tuning in and learning it. That is going to be the light that really engages in everything. And then from that point forward, as Jesse's talked about, then we can start, once we've established the rule of law again correctly, and that the society that we do not belong to is never going to trespass against us again. It's never going to take children from their parents ever again. They're never going to steal our property ever again, because we're going to go back and correct all our titles on the property. We're going to understand the relationship between these honorable men and women that put their lives on the line every day. They're in law enforcement. They're no longer going to be trespassing against us either. Why? Because they're going to be real busy rounding up all of this corruption, and we're going to stand with them and do it. And that's why this is so powerful.
I was going to say, I mean, I think this vision that Jesse just laid out for us, and which you have also added to right now, Christopher, I mean, it's a very powerful vision. It's very invigorating. It was inspiring to listen to Jesse just now, very hopeful. But, those questions that, we have faced up to this moment kind of still stand for many people as to how will you enforce it? How will you file these claims? And it sounds like you are suggesting it's sort of the power of numbers, people coming together and actually exposing this one basic wrong, this primary trespass, that's going to give us the power to move forward and do that.
It's a state of emergency our world's in all our countries, and that's what everyone has to understand. And because there's such an incredible timeline surrounding this, that's as they're constantly moving the markers down the field for their goal that they're trying to reach, we have to step onto the field and not only defend it, but push them right back and right off of the field once and for all. That's why this is so huge, and that's why it's so simple for people to understand, because everybody has the evidence. Right? Everybody has the evidence of what happened to them when they were born. They can go look at their birth certificate that they were given to them, and then they can start to realize it. And when they see this horrific wrong and harm that's been happening against all of us in our court systems, not our court systems, but at our public courthouses, that's going to awake everybody. You have to understand, the bar's finished. The bar's finished in all this. They're going to be regulated to a small corner. They're never again ever going to bring a man or woman in under the color of law and applying legal to them. It's always going to be lawful, which means there has to be a man or a woman that you've caused wrong or harm against, or that there's a contract that you've breached. It's that simple. Okay, you're not being brought in by agents and officers that work for a service corporation. Okay, they're trying to again impose through this color of law. They're trying to make you this legal person, and once you understand the separation, it's powerful. So it's a very important moment in our time. It's biblical, as Jesse has said before, and it truly is. As I said to Jesse before, in the good book, I'm not a religious person, but I do read, and I do understand. I'm a very spiritual person. But you always said in Revelations, that when God returns, he's going to raise the dead, right? It's always told that in the Bible. So take a look at now what we are doing here. This isn't an I love Jesse and me thing, but look at what is actually happening. We're raising people from their consciousness, because right now everyone's walking around dead. You're dead on paper. And we're going to raise the people through that correct paperwork and through our actions to bring the people back to this world. So in a sense, we are doing, God's work right now. And it's, Jesse can speak to it too. The stuff that's flowing through both of us right now is incredibly beautiful. There's so much love. There's so many great people that are coming to the forefront. Every single day, something new is happening with Jesse and I, and we are so grateful, but we are focused on getting this done for our world, and we're not alone. And when Jesse says 100,000 people, I tell you right now, by the time our world gets these messages and this incredible infrastructure he's got put in place, and it all starts to gel in September, we're going to be having millions of people around these courthouses. That's what's required.
I also found it powerful that you are hoping to file claims against the heads of these corporations.
Not hoping.
Planning.
Not hoping, they're going to. And it's
Aiming
not,
to.
that's right. It's a man or a woman that we're simply bringing into court, right? I don't care what their role is, as Jesse has told you. It doesn't matter if they're the head of Burger King or McDonald's. They have no jurisdiction control over a man or woman. And yet this theater that's been set up for a long time, that is all founded on that trespass, is what is allowing them to implement all these things, right? From the media, everything. And it all stops when you understand, if it's a man that's the head of a 5G company, or a man that's head of the corporation that creates fluoride, putting it in the water, well, you don't have to go through a legal process. You bring that man or woman into court, and you bring the evidence forward that what they're doing is actually trespassing, causing wrong and harm to the people. And our fellow man will make a ruling against them. Not a man wearing a robe who's acting as the judge and jury of everything. No. They have no role in this. People need to understand that we do require these honorable people in our courtrooms. They're supposed to be honorable, wearing the robes, and a court clerk. What they do is they sit to the side and they bear witness to the proceeding that's going on, the evidence, everything that's being presented in front of the jury, but is the jury of our peers that makes the decision. Okay, when you come into that courtroom, you move your court how you see fit. You have to, obviously you're not going off when you're there, but you have to have the mettle of the man or the woman to know how to do that. And right now, we know people don't have the mettle of the man to do that, or the woman. It's not an issue. There are those of us that do know how to do it. What we need everyone right now to do is to understand the trespass that happened at birth, get on board with this database that we're creating worldwide with Earth United. And from there, that's when this further communication, further knowledge, further love that's going to be communicated and shared to everybody around this world. It's going to be an incredible moment, but we cannot lose sight of the importance of why we're gathering around these public courthouses.
Fabulous. Jesse, did you have anything further to tell us about, the whole scenario as you're building it, and what the status is currently, and, what you need people who are listening to us, what you especially need them to do, if, of course, they also feel, as we do, that the situation is dire and we all need to do something at this point in time, right?
Yeah, let me just make some things clear. We're heading into a world where no one man has any explicit power over anyone else. And I just want to make that very clear. Because some people, as Chris said, it's not an I love JC thing or I love Chris thing. It's just really about us being very concerned about our fellow brothers and sisters. And it's really about us actually inspiring them to understand that you need to take accountability and responsibility now. And if you don't, please do me a favor, don't complain about the state of the world we're in right now. And I hate to come off that harshly, but this is the game we're playing now. And we have to be very stern in allowing anyone who is receiving any of our communication that this is not a game, that this is destiny. And I believe anyone that's conscious enough to be understanding this message right now, this is a call for you to answer to your destiny. This is all of our destiny, to finally exemplify spirit, And spirit is unified, it is harmonized, and it's interconnected. And for far too long, we've been too attached from those three archetypal principles. So we need to set aside our differences, and we need to put the pedal to the metal, let the rubber meet the road, and we need to get together and work together and do this. So in order to let you know what can be done, in order to help, I'm just going to try screen share here again. If you can just give me a second. So later on, if you could do me a favor, please, and if you could just put some links in the description of this video, that'd be great.
Certainly, absolutely. Send me anything.
Yeah, you guys can, if you're interested in further investigating what it is we're doing, and if you would like to help our cause, then we will leave some links. There'll be a couple of links here, and I'm just going to pull some of them up. Okay, so number one is if you would like to educate yourself in regards to this in particular, you can go to Christopher's website, www.awarriorcause.com. Okay. Then you can also head on over to Christopher's YouTube channel, which is also awarriorcause.com. We'll also put that in the description of this video. It's funny, I don't know what's actually appearing right now. There we go, there's Chris's website. Great. Yeah, it's Chris's website. It's got an absolute wealth of common law knowledge if you are curious to understand more. I've also made a lot of videos on my channel, and if you would like to subscribe to my channel, please go ahead and do that. Jesse Perez Casanova. I have talks on there with Chris, and we really try to break this down as much as possible. We have really a wealth of us speaking about this extensively. And other topics, but always bringing it back to this core solution. We really don't want to take away attention from this solution that it is that we're proposing. It's so important that everyone get laser vision right now. It's so important that everyone understand the solution. And it's so important that everyone works towards the solution and advocates it as much as possible within regards to their own ability. Then when you go to our website, which is www.earthunited.global, on the home page, you'll see there's some videos we've had which essentially encapsulate this information we've gone ahead and presented this evening. Most importantly, if you're serious about joining this cause, go ahead and sign up to our network. This will also allow us to keep in further communication with you. If you are an organization, if you are an advocate, a collective, individual expert, you can head on over to our campaign page. We'll also put this link in the description. This campaign page was purely dedicated towards helping this flourish like a virus. And I don't think flourish and virus goes that well together, but it gives you very explicit instructions as to what it is we're doing, how it is we plan to do that, and how you can actually show your support in helping copy and paste these communications as it says in these instructions, and going ahead and emailing it to anyone you feel that could really contribute towards this cause, whether, as I said, there are individual experts, a organization, a YouTuber, so forth and so on. And I believe that's how we found you guys. So we're trying to streamline this as much as possible. You know, it really does require innovative solutions in order to go ahead and achieve the success that we have our eyes upon. The next thing that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you is the application that we're building. As I said, it's exceptionally important for us to really step up to the plate in the level of professionalism and seriousness within regards to how it is we're applying our minds and our resources towards this campaign. I'm just trying to see if I'm actually able to pull it up. Give me 1 second. Oh, there we go. There. Okay, great. So it's I'm having a little bit of an issue here, but we are building an application. It doesn't seem as though I can go ahead and present that application on here, unfortunately. But that's wait, never mind. There we go.
Oh,
Okay,
you have it? Maybe later, if you have the link, you know, we can just post it.
No, that's fine. I think I've just got it now. Are you able to see the application screen that I'm presenting now?
We're looking at your desktop, it looks like, at one of your folders.
Okay, then never mind. I'm not going to be able to show that, but I am going to quickly explain to you what it is that we're doing, and I will be making a video to address this. Now, some people are skeptical of technology, and understandably, but you know, you're skeptical of technology because technology has been in the wrong people's hands this whole time, these technocratic monopolies and so forth and so on. but we're not naive, and we do understand that we do need innovative solutions, particularly within this campaign we're going ahead and proposing. So we've created an application with its core functionality being, number one, keeping track of the countries in how many people they're able to amass, because we haven't got a date. We've not got ahead and put a date forward, but it will have to happen before the end of this year, definitely, and as soon as possible. So that's why, it's really dependent on us hitting our targets. So the application will allow you to keep track of that. It will also allow you to keep track of our further communications. Chris has an interview with Judy Mikovits, which we're waiting to release, which is going to be extremely powerful, because now all of a sudden you've got this lady speaking about the whole scam of the system and vaccines, and Chris cracking down on common law knowledge in actually being able to show that they had no power and ability to do over anything towards her. And those two things combined, extremely powerful. And then as we have further communications and productions that we plan to release this year, really to be able to go viral. And we also believe this application is necessary because it can give us the ability to go viral, because the greatest way to spread things is word of mouth, and when people see that you've got an application that also automatically puts you in chat rooms based on your town, your city, and your country, this is so important, because what we're doing is we're connecting Yes, we're connecting like-minded individuals that are conscious enough to be aware of this knowledge, to be aware that they're slaves, and to be aware that something can be done. And it's giving you safety because it's connecting you to your direct networks. It's allowing you to go forth and create your own networks in your community. And it's great because it keeps all our information in there, so they don't only join in, but they actually get educated in what it is that we're proposing. Then it allows them, it's such a simple core functionality. I'm surprised it's never been done before, but I have an idea why it hasn't been done, because it's really unity. Hence the name Earth United. This is going to unify people like crazy. Okay. And that's what we want to do. We want people to feel safe. We want people to feel connected. And we want people to develop a visual perception of the individuals that have their back out there, which we like to call Earth Warriors. Later on this application, once we've solved this, once we're all celebrating, the application will be really dedicated towards helping organizations and advocates like yourself prosper as much as possible and provide solutions. And then for those solutions to be customized, templated, and essentially a self-governing system, which will allow people to self-govern themselves. And I'm not going to get into that much right now. There's other videos we've created on that. Most important thing, guys, let's clear the environment. Let's clear the playing field. Okay. So we can collectively, consensively come to agreements, whether you're in a community of 100 people, 100,000 people, 100 million. This is the beauty about freedom. You're always going to get the choice to decide. But let's clear that playing field so we can get to that point. And then we can take responsibility and accountability for this world we live in. But right now, we need to take accountability and responsibility for the fact that we're enslaved. And fortunately, there is a solution.
Absolutely inspiring and wonderful, Jesse. Thank you. I wanted to actually ask, I have two remaining questions, and I'm going to ask Canelo as well if she has other questions for both of you. One of those has to do with the numbers that you mentioned, and I understand you don't want to talk about too many aspects of that right now, but you have some kind of figure in mind. You want to hit 100,000 in certain, did you say 4 countries around the world before you move forward?
Each 100,000, and this is a number that Christopher had proposed, and I agree with him 100%. 100,000 people in each of the 4 selective and respective countries. But of course, if millions come, which is an extreme possibility, especially once this really gets going, because Chris has been going on one talk show after the next, and people are responding unbelievably well towards this. But of course, we have to set a target somewhat that's achievable just in our minds, so that we can have something that we can work towards, because at the end of the day, we're only going to have so long to push the trigger on this.
Okay,
and we're only going to get one chance to do this. We're going to get one chance to do this.
Right.
There's
so
not
it's
going
sort
to
of
be
like
2 chances.
It's a minimum kind of number. Once you hit
Yeah,
that number, you're going to move forward. That's kind of
we have
why
to. Yeah,
you
we have
have
to.
that number. Okay, great. And then the other question I had, which I think people may have looking at anybody coming forward in this space, and in this time period to kind of challenge the powers that be, etc., is, are you being supported by somebody? Do you have sponsors of any kind? How are you kind of, supporting yourself? Do you need money for your infrastructure, and where is it coming from? People, I think, are afraid that the structure as we know it, the pyramid scheme as we have it, our pyramid friends kind of simply reinvent themselves and kind of infiltrate and take over everything. So that question kind of needs to be asked of everybody who's working to bring about change. So what would you say in response to all of that?
So number one, we have obviously because our message is so strong, because we're gaining traction, we have external threats. Right, something we have to be very cautious of. But this is why me and Chris sit at the top of Earth United. We've developed it in such a way that it cannot get external influence, because it's so
Oh,
important. We
good.
can't have any vulnerabilities in regards to this operation being compromised. Within regards to resources, this is a crowd-funded initiative, to be very honest with you. Uh, any bit of assistance we can get, whether it's financial or just sharing this or reaching out to people on our behalf, is completely, it's necessary. I'm not going to lie to you. You can support Chris and or Earth United, or myself, but idealistically Earth United, because we do need we do need resources, because there are a couple of more things we need to do. For instance, one of the things we need to do is have live streaming teams outside of reasonable amounts of these public court proceedings all over the world. And then we essentially need mobile Wi-Fi infrastructure, because obviously this is like very dangerous what we're doing. People don't realize this. Like, we're not doing this for fun. We're doing this because our lives are on the line. And now that we're doing this, our lives are on the line more than ever. So there are threats like, internet blackouts and so forth and so on. So we do have certain contingencies in mind. And in fact, that's actually one of the reasons why the application is in development, because it's our own contingency. Because as you know, Facebook and these communist platforms are just shutting down people left, right, and center. And it's a combination of entertainment and truth. And it's like, we don't want the entertainment. We're done with the entertainment. We've been entertained for far too long. We need to have, constructive results. So, we do require resources in order to support the application, to develop the application, and also our operation in particular. And of course, the more resources we have, the better we can do everything. If you look at what we've done, it's beautiful, it's amazing. But really, it's been self-generated. We've gone ahead, we've done this. And so we're doing it properly. So obviously, any resources we can acquire will just make it even crazier than it already is.
That's terrific. So really, you're also issuing a call for people to come forward and support you, because it's very much crowdfunded, and it's pretty much supporting you both, because you are running the show. You are the organization that you are sort of incipiently building together,
It's a
right?
full-time job, yeah. And Chris works tirelessly. I have to remind him to rest. And I work tirelessly. I have to remind myself to rest. And we have some other
Yeah.
remarkable, beautiful individuals that are actually, it's so crazy. I mean, when this all started and Chris laid this down on me,
Mm-hmm.
it was daunting at first, because I'm like, this is great, but how do we achieve this? Okay. And part of achieving it, and this is my own personal opinion, take it or leave it, but it's where hard work meets spiritual destiny. You can work so hard, but if the doors aren't opening up for you, if God is not on your side, you're going to get nowhere. Okay. And I'm sure that can resonate with many people out there. But what's been so beautiful within regards to this hard work and the way we've been applying ourselves towards this is that everything we've ever required has come at the right time. It's insane. And
Wow.
it's happened so much that now I'm in a very relaxed and confident mood. And that's also thanks to Chris and his outlook on this. I'm learning, I'm evolving. And Chris, my man, I thank you so much. I love you to bits, brother. I love you to bits, man.
Well, it's the
Thanks,
same
brother.
here. We wouldn't have got this done. And if I can just say so people know at home, you're absolutely right. You know, you never believe these people, whether it's Jesse or myself, do your research for yourself. But I'll say this, is that when you talk to where our funding and that came from, because of course you wonder who's funding these people. Is there something nefarious going on in the background? I want people to know that before I met Jesse, I've been doing this on my own for 20 years. I was helping people in the court systems. I never took a dime from anybody. And the only reason that I'm here today is because of my mother, my father, and my sister. They kept a roof over my head, they kept food on the table, and they allowed me to keep drilling down on this truth for our world. And meeting Jesse, as Jesse just said there, it's absolutely right, is that I've had to let go and let God, because I've learned a lot over the last, especially the last 10 years. I can be aggressive, I can be wanting to push things and get things done, but you realize you can't do that with the universe, and that everything happens when it's supposed to happen, whether you like it or not. And this is what, you know, I've just learned to let go and let God. And as Jesse said, right now, things are coming to us that are just absolutely wonderful. We do need financial support helping in what we're doing, because this is a big thing that we're taking on here. But I don't go around asking for donations, and I never have, but it is a part of this. And we're grateful for every dollar that we get from anybody, because it's put right back into this system that we're creating to bring this vehicle forward to change this world. So I thank you, Jesse, as well. Like, you know, it's not always a love me thing with Jesse and I, but we care about each other very much. And that's why I said to Jesse, you know, you hear the word Earth United and you hear the world warrior calls, right? Well, yes, these are creations that we've made, but you know what? They're just the fictions that we talk about. You're dealing with the two men right here, right now, that are bringing this truth forward, and we're open textbooks, right? We're open to everybody to share with what we're doing, who we're about. We have nothing nefarious going on in the background. And it's that love that Jesse and I have for each other and have for this world that is actually coming out now through this website. Like as Jesse says, it's morphing, it's changing. Even my work and my talks that I'm giving, like I've always talked like that, but there's a different energy now, and it's coming back to us. It's washing back over us from all these subscribers that subscribe to our channels and watch our videos, because they are being impacted by the love that Jesse and I have for this world and what we're doing.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Christopher. So, Nilu, did you have any closing questions or comments as we bring this conversation this afternoon to a close? First of all, this has been a fascinating conversation, and there's so much inspiring information that you have both shared with us. And the fact that you have attempted something so ambitious as to reach out to the entire world, you know, and to want to bring in people from every country and continent, I think that's pretty outstanding. So, you know, more power to you and what you are doing. And hopefully, people will all come together to help support you, because that's a very noble cause to just sort of break that primary trespass, as you say, you know, the birth certificate, seeing people as dead when people are alive, that basic constructive fraud that all of us have been harmed by and continue to be harmed by. So it's a huge cause, it's a noble cause, and you know, one just hopes that everybody listening will come forward. So Nilu, any, you know, we can just go around and, you know, feel free to throw in your last words, your last comments as we close. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, similar to what you've asked, Romola, about the financial side of it, that we obviously will need a lot of money further down the road, especially if we're going to go global, especially if we're going into the, you know, the poorer countries, to get them technologically up to level with us. And that's where the remedies are required the most. And then the other issue was, obviously we have a lot of prosperity gold in the Swiss Indo project, which we are working on, I'm working on myself. And, you know, quite a few, we've got the group on Facebook, MC Neo, the United Kingdom of God, Sky, Earth. So hopefully somehow we can tie all this together, because we're honorable people, we're naturally 100% human, which we can't say for sure about these people that who are trying to enslave us and destroy us. So, you know, we have to deal with them somewhere down the road, and they have all the money and we have none at the moment. So we're at that rock bottom, and they're at the delusional, you know, thinking where they're going to win, and they're not, because God never loses. So, I mean, I just wanted to say about the God's laws and the God's oath and the God's children and this God's planet, that we are here, we belong here, we will stay here, and they don't belong here, they will have to go at one point or another. That's all I can say. So yeah, great that we're all on the same mission, and we will get our prosperity, all the money that they've stolen from us to enslave us, we will get it.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very big factor in all of this. That this actually, there's been unlawfully claimed assets because of this corrupt system that's literally built upon the basis of fraud. So even any banks lend credits or, unlawfully claim property and unlawfully claim taxation, it's all literally upon the basis of this trespass and this fraud. So what's also so beautiful about this is it literally has the ability to invalidate the system, and essentially all of these tax revenue collection agencies will literally dissolve and have to actually return all of this unlawfully acquired wealth. And you're talking about 80% of the world's wealth that's just never had a chance to touch the 99%'s hands, and all of a sudden, that will have to get redistributed. And in the process, a lot of these evil private corporations, so forth and so on, banking, etc., will actually become liquidated in actually having to pay back these unlawfully acquired assets.
Yep, that's well said, Jesse. And I guess I would just close it with saying Jesse and I are very grateful for the opportunity that we've been given to bring this light forward to the world. And speaking with you all here today is very important, in your listeners to support us, because the beauty of this trespass has happened against all of us, and it's time that we stood together. Time that we start right from the beginning, and it is so simple, as Jesse has said many times here today, right? It is so simple once you understand who you are, and we will show people moving forward honorably, with courage and with integrity, these actions that we're going to do in the forefront here. But right now, it's the knowledge stage and bringing people together on our train, so to speak. Once everyone's on our train, then we'll start giving you the details moving forward, and you'll be wanting to put your seatbelt on when that happens, because it's going to be incredibly exciting. So thank you for having Jesse and I here today. We're truly blessed.
You're very welcome. Thank you both so much for being here this afternoon. Thank you very much, Nilu, as well. Everything that you outlined just sounds absolutely incredible, and you have a lot of information on your websites. Feel free, by the way, to send me on any links, and I will post below the video.
Yeah, I'll send you all the links on behalf of Christopher and myself and Earth United.
Beautiful.
Okay, definitely. And, people watching, all I can say is I think a lot of people watching probably are, on your team already. And many are going to be very excited and interested and happy that somebody is sort of leading the charge, so to speak, and is dealing with this huge mess that all of us are looking at currently. So thanks very much again, everybody. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again very soon. Thank you for now.
Thank you so much.
God bless.